Welcome to today's webinar on maneuvering in the political environment. My name is Brandon Battle, Project Assistant with the IACP's Leading by Legacy program. Today's webinar is provided by the IACP's Leading by Legacy program and is made possible through the support of the Bureau of Justice Assistance and the U.S. Department of Justice. Before we begin, there are a few key things about the GoToWebinar service. You have the option to log in and listen to the audio portion of the webinar through your speakers and microphone or via telephone. You will see these options on your control panel once you've logged in. If you are having any difficulty using GoToWebinar, you can call ISP staff at 703-647-6830. The control panel will automatically minimize itself. To enlarge it, just click on the Side tab. At the end of the presentation, we will be taking live questions from the audience. You can ask a question by clicking on the hand icon in the control panel on the right. We will then call on you and unmute you so that you can directly ask the panelists a question. You may also submit a question by typing your question into the question box located at the bottom of the control panel. Once you have submitted your question, I will then read it to the panelists. Our presenter today is Chief Dave Kurz. Dave Kurz is the Chief of Police of the Durham, New Hampshire Police Department. Chief Kurz obtained a bachelor's in criminal justice from the University of Southern Maine and has served in law enforcement since 1974. Chief Kurz previously served as the Chief of the Gorham, Maine Police Department and as Deputy Director of the Maine Drug Enforcement Agency with the Maine Department of Public Safety from 1990 to 1996. Chief Kurz serves as an instructor with the Leading by Legacy program and routinely conducts training seminars for the IACP focusing on strategic planning and personnel management. As a team leader for CALEA, he has reviewed the policies and procedures of over 50 police agencies seeking national accreditation and recognition. He has also published 6 articles for the IACP's Police Chief magazine, focusing on strategic planning, alcohol enforcement, promotional process, effective performance evaluations, and new technology acquisition. And now I'll turn it over to Chief Kurz.
All right, well, this is obviously about navigating in a political environment, and it really isn't an art form at all. It's really about making government work. And in this day and age of daily and just being inundated by the news about the way politics is not working, and she said, he said, literally, we got to stop thinking about political correctness or incorrectness or just being political as anything being bad. And really our concern or our forum as police chiefs and police leaders, it's truly about making government work and making it so that we have relationships with a variety of different people. So the reality is that all of us work in these 5 spheres, these 5 areas of our life that impacts upon the department and how we're going to function. So if we, the reality is that a police chief must be political, but we don't want to be playing politics or being perceived as playing politics. We clearly being responsive to the community, the council, the town manager, whatever your form of government is, it's just part of the chief's political reality, because you are working for them. And every time we forget who we're working for is when we get to read about ourselves in the paper. Police chiefs who are not politically savvy simply do not last long, and those who play political games have even shorter careers. So somewhere in there is you've got to be able to find the balance between all of this. Hopefully the critical takeaway from this particular webinar is that effective politics is truly about effective relationships. A police chief must create situations where he or she can begin forming those relationships. Additionally, the chief should be encouraging community engagement by all employees of the department, not just by focusing on the political survival of the chief. If everyone's thinking in the same regard, then we're all going to be all right. The clear challenge for us all here is to find the effective balance that's going to work for us all. So if you can't figure out how to navigate within 3 of those 5 arenas, you're going to have a challenge. Now, obviously, in a perfect world, all 5 would be, all 5 having a good relationship in all 5 that you can go back to is an important attribute. The reality is you'll probably survive if you can at least do 3. If you can't negotiate through some of these fears, like in the certainly with the town council, your town manager, I mean, the reality is that you're not going to get the resources you need to run your organization. And that just has such dire consequences, not only for you, but for the organization. If something goes wrong, and in our business something always does, if you can't rally support, then you're going to have a problem. The reality is that I like saying that I have humans working for me, they're dealing with other humans, so there's a mistake being made because what I'm trying to say to you today may not be heard very well, let alone the fact that I have this Boston accent going. So the reality is that you must be able to figure out how to deal within these, and to navigate through these landmines, and if you're going to have any change within your organization, within the impact it's going to have in the community, you need to understand how some of these arenas work. It truly is about relationships. One of the interesting things is that when I go into a restaurant downtown Durham, a lot of times if I'm going to be meeting somebody, it takes me a while to get to the end of the restaurant to meet the people I'm going to meet, because there's people along the way I'm going to see. And someone jokes with me about, what are you, running for office? No, I'm not running for office, but I'm their police chief, and they want to see me, and I want to be able to say hi to them. And only the ones who don't know my name are the ones who are going to be calling me chief. So most people call me Dave, and that's fine. It doesn't bother me, and hopefully it won't bother you. A lot of times you're going to get chief out of respect. But the bottom line is that it's, in essence, about relationships not only within the agency but without. One of the keys within the organization, there's a lot of talk right now about procedural justice, and that's where what's happening more and more out in the world is that people are really looking at how they're not as worried about how the outcome of the situation is, but they're interested in how you got there. Was it fair? Was it appropriate? And that seems to be, an emerging topic, not only in what we're dealing with right now in the difficult times of policing within an organization, with policing within a diverse community, but people want to know that that the justice system is more tied to the perceived fairness of the process than almost how the outcome was done. So even when you're doing that kind of process, or how you're acting within your organization, is really critical, because your own officers are going to be looking at how you arrived at your decisions. Was it done with across the board? Is someone getting more training than somebody else? Is someone perceived as a favorite, or are they the ones that are getting along with it? The other thing is that if someone is kind of poisonous within your organization, then what you allow, you condone. And if you don't do something about it, people are watching that too. Not making a decision is frankly making a decision. So if you at least are able within your own organization to achieve a positive work environment through one that is based on fairness throughout the entire organization, you'll be better off when you have to make that bad decision that no one wants to make, whether it's a termination, whether it's a suspension, whatever it is. At least people will understand that you arrived at it in a fair and thoughtful kind of way. So the other thing that's important that a lot of us miss, and I don't think it's that simple, where the mission of the organization really needs to be decided. And that's not a bad exercise to take on. If you haven't looked at your mission statement lately, it's a great opportunity. But the onus is on us to create some of these opportunities, and you're going to hear me talk about that over and over again. We're the professionals. If you just let things ride and make assumptions that people understand what you're doing, they don't. So make sure to take the opportunity to sit, reinvent your mission if that's appropriate, and make sure that you're all on the same train. Just getting there is going to be the exact benefit, if you will, of getting to understanding what the mission is and making sure everyone's doing it appropriately. So we all know this to be true. Within our community, we're generally dealing with a very small population from a police perspective, a law enforcement perspective. And this is where I have to say that the onus is on us to create opportunities to either do some problem solving within our organization as to how we're going to deal with this 8% of the population, 5%, somewhere in that area. Yeah, and some of that can be done through some problem solving from allowing that to occur. But that means that we as an organization may be ignoring the other 90% of our community. And this is where I think the opportunities exist for us as police managers to create those times where we can interact with our community in a positive way. Absent that, every time you deal with someone, it's going to be in a law enforcement mode. So create opportunities, whether it's having coffee, the coffee with the cop. In Durham, believe it or not, we have Tie Tuesday. It sounds kind of foolish to a certain extent, but people in town know that we're going to be at Tie Tuesday, and they're more than welcome to join us for lunch. And it's become somewhat of an opportunity for people from the bank, from the various businesses downtown, from the various organizations, that you can have lunch with the chief, and a whole bunch of other people may be there or may not be there, but the chief will always be there on Tuesday. Simplistic stuff while I'm still eating lunch. So it kind of makes some sense to keep this, it's creating opportunity. It's just being outreaching and asking the questions, because absent that, you're still focusing on the 10%, and when the proverbial hits the fan and you have nowhere to go because you haven't created the relationships, you're not going to be able to sustain. Whether it's community forums, open house once a year. Another thing we do that's really simplistic is at the high school, the freshmen that are coming in on their orientation day, we serve them pizza. It doesn't take much to do that. The officers come in uniform and we just serve them pizza. You get a chance to interact in a non-law enforcement way. But this wouldn't be happening if we didn't create it to happen. So, when you're dealing with the media, there isn't anyone I'm talking to that hasn't had challenges with the media. And there are strategies, I believe, that we can implement that will have some positive, at least be able to coexist when we're dealing with all these crises. Because it's, we want to say the media is not our friends, well, then make them your friends. The onus is on us. We're the professionals, and I'm going to say it again, create the opportunities to do that. So one of the things that most of us should have policies for our staff to deal with the press. So send the policies that you've created within your organization to deal with the media to the media. Let them offer some insight as to things that you have put in your policy, things that is problematic to them that you really may not care particularly about, that is not that important, that kind of makes sense and doesn't really create an irritation to them. If things are really bad and it keeps going on and on and on with some negative press, then go meet with the editor. Find out what's going on. What is it that you've done that they perceive as being counterproductive to the media? The other thing that I want to impress upon you is have some strategies as to what it is you're going to do when those things that can't happen here happen. And such as when you're an involved officer shooting, or some kind of internal affairs investigation, how much can you say, how much can't you say? Know these things before it occurs so that you know what it is you're going to say, and in fact by your policy that you've already provided to the media, they understand that too. So that in itself doesn't become a challenge. As I indicated, police misconduct or internal affairs can be a flashpoint in any organization. So again, having these policies in place, knowing what you're going to do and what you're not going to do, and being clear to the media will hopefully help alleviate some of these things. The best part is, we can watch it over and over again in the media, how the worst thing that any people in the public sector do is to try to cover up, try to gloss over, try to, in some way, make it look like it's not as negative as it is. That becomes the issue, not the issue that started this in the first place. It seems to me, and you can don't take my word for it, but if you're disciplining someone and they're in front of your desk and they say, "Chief, I screwed up. I'm sorry. I'll take every effort not to have it happen again." What do you do with that? You're going to start yelling at them just because you're going to feel good? The point is that why not just say, "Listen, we didn't do this well. We're going to take steps to make sure that it doesn't happen again. We're putting policy in place. We're going to be training." End of story. So yeah, it's not great. It doesn't feel good. But the bottom line is that you haven't got 4 days of media press. You only have 1 or 2. So make sure these things are out there. And the other part is that people want information, and absent you providing it, they're going to make it up. They're going to fill that void. Now, I'm not saying that the media is making things up, and we can talk to that. But what will start happening is so-and-so is quoted saying, "Well, I heard." And it's not factual. But the thing is that are you going to fight everything? The point that is of essence here is to be upfront about what happened, what didn't happen, and hopefully it will go away as quickly as possible. Other areas of local government, your peers, the code enforcement officials. In Durham, we have the University of New Hampshire is located here. We have a lot of issues with code violations that are occurring in apartments where there's a lot of parties. So it makes sense for us, for instance, to have a positive relationship with code enforcement officials so that we can work in tandem with them, not against them. Have those meetings. If they don't invite you to the meeting, you make the meeting. Have that copy with them so that what is it you want to do, how can we do it better together. I mean, the fire department, we love joking. There's always a donut joke somewhere in here, and I always thank them for not taking a nap and they were able to come to the meeting. So, that's the relationship we probably all have with our fire department. It's a great one, but we like to tease each other, so do it. It's fine. It creates relationships and creates trust. And there's a lot of things that we have to do together, but how many times have we had little minutia type things that have been frustrating to our officers and probably frustrating to the fire department because we don't understand it. So take opportunities to interact in a more positive, where do you want people to stop and not have the fire truck drive over the skid marks? Or how close does the fire department want us to be so that we're not running over hoses? There's things enough that go around, so try to work them out beforehand. A small agency like ours, whether there's a resource office or not, have them help you with doing the hiring process. If they're already doing it anyway, make sure that you understand that they're doing what you want done. There's policies that you want in place, understand what they are, and understand that the human resources folks are doing things that they need to do in their certain ways. The point, I guess, that is a common theme here, and you'll hear it in the next slides too, is meet before the proverbial hits the fan. Because when it's already in crisis mode, it's not the time to start shaking hands and talking about your kids and how great a person each of you are. You want to do it beforehand. So there's a lot of people you're going to deal with. In our state and many others, if there's an officer-involved shooting or if there's a homicide investigation, the Attorney General's office is going to be showing up. The state police a lot of times will handle the homicides in some states, others not. Know who the troop commander is. I mean, these sound like mundane things that you take for granted, but the reality is many people don't. And it's important to figure out these relationships in a moment of clarity and a moment of calm, as opposed to doing it in a moment of crisis. Have the relationships already solidified, or know who to talk. And it's not just the FBI that's in the regional office, but you've got other agencies that are in the area, ATF, DEA. Know who to go to, what they can do, the State Department. So much fraud is occurring now on scamming that, you know, the State Department oversees many of those things because it either goes out of country or they could have the avenue. These are people you want to know before you need to go for them. Community resources such as dealing with child protective services. You don't want to be meeting these people when you need their services. Understand who they are. If you have departmental meetings or you can do some roll call training, have them come in and talk to you about their services, how to reach them, how not to reach them. And the other thing is that almost all of us who have come up through the ranks have had either prosecution issues or other legal issues where you've either been frustrated or didn't understand what was going on. And try to figure that stuff out and just don't go silently into it. You know, ask the question so that, you know, we're not making at least the same mistake twice. Some things to consider that you might, for approaching different things as far as council members, you know, there's different groups of people who oversee the government, but there's always going to be somebody. And whether it's called a council or you work for the town manager or the city manager, or it's a board of selectmen or trustees or commissioners, whatever it is you call them, go to the meetings. The slide indicates, even if you're not on the agenda, just to say hi. You don't have to stay for the whole meeting. Just creating opportunities to be seen in a non-law enforcement way when the problem doesn't exist, when it's just to say hi. Again, try to sit down with them. If your boss is, you know, you got to be careful about navigating through some of this. If the mayor's your boss, then you don't want to be going to the select persons or the council members before you go to the mayor. Understand what kind of government you work for. And I know that sounds simplistic, but it's not. If you make a mistake, all of a sudden you talk to one councilor and you don't talk to the others, you've already formed an enemy before you even started. So one of the key things from my perspective anyway is that we're going to be in the newspaper, we being the police department, make sure your boss knows that's going to occur. And you try not to bother your boss with what they don't need to know because it's minutia and if you don't want to trouble them. But if you believe in any capacity that it's going to turn into something that they're going to be surprised about, then let them know that at least this is coming up or this big arrest that was made. Don't allow them to read in the newspaper. I mean, you're going to cause an issue, again, without meaning to do so, but you're going to. Some of the tactics that in dealing with elected officials, I mean, they have their issues, and sadly, some of them may be to get rid of the police department or get rid of you. But the bottom line is that you want to be taking the high road on all these issues. It's important to be looking down on it, so do take the high road. Be willing to compromise. It doesn't mean that you're always right, but the art of politics and relationships is being able to compromise. Whether you do it with your family, you do it with your wife, you do it with your partner, just be willing to make those compromises. I mean, now, if we're into integrity, absolutely not. Integrity is a non-negotiable, non-compromising thing. That's not what I'm talking about. But if you want to go to war over whether you're going to get 3 cruises or 4 cruises, consider that. Try not to let your ego get in the way. Have enough of an ego to get the job done because you've got to get it done. You've got to stand by your principles, but don't let it be my way or the highway. And listen, it's, you know, what's interesting is the least effective thing that we do as managers is listen. We're always talking, and I'm as guilty of that as the next. Hopefully not in a preaching way, but I'm the one talking generally. And we can all think about listening to what people are actually saying and how they're saying it. And if you lead with humility, what I know to be true, for instance, in the Durham Police Department is I'm not the smartest person here. Always hire people who are smarter than you, and you're going to be better off because they're going to make you look good. You're still the chief. And always, always, always lead ethically. If you're confused about what it is you should do, what is the best thing for the organization? Forget about yourself. What is the best thing for the organization? And if you think in that capacity, I can guarantee you that you will not be making mistakes. Now, the bottom line is that something's going to go wrong. We just know it's coming. Maybe while I'm on this webinar, something's going wrong. And when it does, work it out face to face. It's nothing like sending someone an email and not understanding what the dynamics are and how you're saying it in the email. If you're face to face, people can see that you're concerned. They can see that you're sincere. They can see from your tone or hear from your tone that you're trying to solve whatever it is that is confronting both of the people that are involved with this. So if it gets to be that point, get out from behind your desk, take a ride in the cruiser, and get to where you need to get so you can do it face to face. You can work it out a lot better in that manner. Something doesn't mean it has to be your way, but at least if you need to apologize, then apologize and swallow. If you've got to, if you need to stand up for whatever it is, then at least you can explain why you need to take this solid stand. Now, if that doesn't work, and doesn't mean it's not going to work, ask for the clarification in writing. If it's really something that you feel strongly about, you're not able to compromise on this, and ask for the clarification. I want to be clear as to what you want me to do or how you want me to do it. I'd like to have it in writing. That idea of documentation, I'm not the paranoid police chief who tries to keep every piece of paper and note every time I talk to so-and-so. But sadly, there are some of those situations, and we all know who they are, that you're going to need to do that. You're going to need to refer to that document later on, and sadly, that's just the nature of our life. And be wise about how you do that. I really don't want you to think that I'm telling you to have that little black book of everything that you've ever done in there, and and just so that you can, if that's how you have to do self-preservation, think about another career. But try to stay objective. Try to be positive. This is not against you. Your glass can be half full. Try not to have it half empty. This is a negative business by connotation, but we can do some really positive things. Just try to remain that positive person. And do think about the fact that is it possible that they may be right, or at least part of what they're saying may be right. Think about it in that capacity, because I don't know, as I've gotten older, and I was one of the patrol officers who I'd run down the chief's office and say, Chief, you got to do something about this right away. Well, as I've learned over the years, as things slow down or as time passes, the crisis that caused me to run to the chief's office in the first place either wasn't exactly the way it was portrayed to me, or it could have changed a little bit. So slow it down a little bit. Now, there's things that you're not going to be able to. We all understand that. But understand, when you throw a rock in the water, what's the ramification of that? Is it going to be a ripple, or is it going to be a wave? And understand whether your irritation is going to be a dispute that is actually worth it. My desk is loaded with fires, but there's areas where there's some smoldering. Which one is worth the dispute and getting irritated with? So we're at that point. As I started saying in the beginning, it really is about relationships, relationships, relationships. And there's a famous saying, Brandon's probably going to get nervous here, but there's a famous saying by President Lyndon Baines Johnson, where he said, I want people in my tent pissing out, not pissing in. So what you want is to create a tent, get people to come into it and understand what's going on in there, and when you need them, then fine, they're next to you, and if they're not, then they're outside the tent. So think about it in that capacity. I'll take some questions if there are any.
Thank you, Chief Kurz. Now open the floor for questions. It looks like we do have a question. Many of my local officials have one-year terms. How would you suggest that I build relationships with them?
Have the coffee. The minute they announce that they're going to be running for office, one of the things that I do in Durham is I send them each a letter saying, good luck on your race, congratulations on, getting involved. I include our strategic plan. I include any other documents that I think might be relevant, and then offer them an opportunity to ride in the cruiser if they want to do that, or come talk to me about issues with policing in the town. But the point of that is that you're doing it to everyone who's running, not just one person, everybody. And that everyone's getting the same letter, offering the same services. But you're putting yourself out there, and you're creating an opportunity for something to happen.
Looks like all the questions that we have now. Thank you everyone for attending today's webinar. A recording of today's presentation will be posted on the IACP's Leading by Legacy website at www.theisp.org/LBL webinars. You can also access it on the link listed above on the slide, Leading by Legacy. Thank you, Chief Kurz, for presenting today, and thank you to everyone for attending today's webinar.